All right, so it looks like we have a critical mass coming into the webinar. My name is Abel Guillen. I'm the Deputy Superintendent of Public Instruction. I oversee the Operations and Administration branch of CDE, which includes our emergency services team. We're here today to provide information to local education agencies around potential flooding that is predicted to happen in the Central Valley due to the recent storms. We know that we cannot stop natural disasters, but we can arm ourselves with the information and tools needed to respond appropriately, to take steps to save lives, save property, and take the steps we need to ensure our students' education needs are met. So with that today, our team has assembled the webinar with various partners from state agencies throughout the state to provide our partners with information relative to preparing for flooding, particularly in Tulare Basin area. Want to acknowledge our partners that are here today. Wanted to also let you all know that we have live ASL interpretation for those that need it. This webinar will be posted on CDE's website, and it is being recorded. We know that a lot of questions may come up, but because it's such a short time frame that we have, we want to make sure we give enough time to our partners. So we ask folks to please put your questions in the Q&A chat, and we will try to get to your questions not immediately, but in the next week or so, answer the specific questions you may have. So we're not going to be asking or answering questions immediately on the webinar, but we do encourage you to put your questions in the Q&A so that our EST team can get back to you. So on behalf of Superintendent Tony Thurman, I'd like to welcome you all here today for joining us for this informative webinar. I want to thank our partners, National Weather Service, the Department of Water Resources, Cal OES, the Red Cross, and all of you for being here. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and ask for the next slide. I'm going to ask our division director that oversees EST, Juan Morales, to give us a few words of welcome. Juan, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name again is Juan Mireles. I'm the director of the School Facilities and Transportation Services division here at CDE, and we are part of Mr. Guillen's Operations and Administration branch. I also have the honor of having the department's emergency services team as part of my division. And for those of you that have not met them yet, you'll have the opportunity to meet Joe and Jake a little later in this presentation. We do hope that this information during the webinar is helpful, along with the resource list that we sent you. But we will continue to be here and be available should you actually be impacted by the flooding. Thank you, and I hope that you all enjoy this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Juan. Wanted to reference that throughout today's webinar, we'll be referencing several resources and webpage links. Those will be put in the chat, so we want to encourage you to take a look at those resources and those web links that are posted in the chat as a reference for you to use. You should have received from CDE recently a letter with internal CDE resources that might be available to you that you may want to use. It's a list of different departments that you can have access to at the tips of your fingers, so you don't have to go searching for the various departments or different contacts that we think might be helpful for LEAs in the case of an emergency. So with that, I wanted to turn it over for the National Weather Service for our first presenter here today. Tom Graham is going to give us a situational awareness of what's going on with the weather. So Tom?
Actually, Eric.
I'm sorry, Eric?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Eric Schoening here with the National Weather Service. Apologies about the awkward overhead view here, but you get a little peek into our Regional Operations Center here. I'll give you kind of the short-term weather outlook, and then Dr. Anderson with DWR will give you kind of what that means for the rivers and flooding situation. So we're going to see continuation of very warm temperatures across the state through this week and into the upcoming weekend. That'll lead to widespread moderate heat impacts. So definitely some health concerns out there as we start warming up and heading into the summer. That includes the Tulare Basin, where we'll see high temperatures in the mid to upper 90s, which is about 12 to 14 degrees above normal for mid to late May. We might also see some scattered showers and thunderstorms in the afternoons and evenings. Those are primarily going to be in the mountains across the Sierra and the mountains across Southern California. A few of those thunderstorms could be strong with some small hail and gusty winds. With any of these thunderstorms, they could produce locally heavy rainfall, but in general, they're not expected to be a major impact to the hydrologic concerns. So it could cause some localized street flooding and such, but in general, not really expecting anything as far as more widespread flooding with those thunderstorms. That is all I have, but thank you very much, and let me know if there's any other information I can provide.
Thank you so much, Eric, for your report, and wanted to reference in the chat, we have the link for the National Weather Service. Thank you for being a partner here today. We appreciate that. Wanted to turn it over to Dr. Michael Anderson. He's going to give us an outlook on what's going on with our rivers and tributaries and the inundation outlook. So, Dr. Anderson, thank you so much for being here today and providing this information to our educational community.
All right, everybody. Hi there. Happy to be here. Let me share my screen here. Whoops. Can I get? Thank you. Let's go a few places. Let's start here. Wanted to start with a slide I used in a briefing this morning showing a satellite view of the Tulare Lake Bed region. The one on the left is at April 1st. This is around our peak snowpack. The inundation that you see around the lake bed there is from those March storms, where you see the kind of right angle in the flooding. That is the Corcoran levee protecting the community of Corcoran. On the right hand side, you see on May 14th, a lot of that dark blue, which represents the snowpack from the satellite's point of view, is melted. It's gone. Lower elevation snow is gone. Higher elevation snow still there. We're passing peak snow melt over the next 4 weeks. And that's where we'll see the most snow melt coming down. They're coming down at rates that the reservoirs have been and expect to continue to be able to manage. Then from the reservoirs down to the lake bed, there is the diversions that are used for the farms to grow crops, but there will likely be some excess water that does end up feeding the growth of the lake bed. To that end, let's go to the next product here real quick. So the department has been developing some modeling work to explore how big the lake can get given the snow melt and given our understanding of the reservoir operations and information from the local irrigators on how much water they can take in. And this map represents the extent of inundation that might be expected by the end of July. And the blue would be the driest outcome, which is certainly what we've been tracking through the snowmelt season. It has been warmer and drier than we might normally expect. The yellow and the red represent yellow. It would be if we were having a more average spring in terms of how much rain was falling. And then, and by spring, meaning April, May, and June. And then that red would be if we were in a really wet, staying in that really wet scenario, which we are not. Now, from this, we can see that by the end of July, it looks like the levee protecting the community of Corcoran should be fine. Looking at elevation of the water surface around 184 feet. Really following that drier scenario that we've been tracking. So we'll acknowledge, though, there are some uncertainties in this modeling because we do not have all the information from the irrigators. And so would expect actually that the inundation extent may be even less than this, but this gives us a sense that we've shared with the Office of Emergency Services in the Advanced Planning Unit to kind of plan to and look at potential contingencies for flooding. Happy to entertain any questions. Thank you for the time.
Thank you for sharing the map. And if I could ask you to just scroll down a little bit, Michael, so we can see just the top of it real quick. Great.
There you go.
So much. I appreciate that. And of course, I believe that the conditions continue to change as the weather changes, correct?
That is correct. So one of the things that might happen if they do develop some thunderstorms over the Sierra is that provides cloudiness and shading, and that will actually slow down the melt. What that'll do is we hit peak melt is rather than it being a really sharp melt with a lot of water, tend to be a more broader peak with a little less. And it's a little less, it's more manageable. Gives time for more of the water to be used and put to beneficial use in the diversions for the agricultural community, which would be great if we could get that the rest of the way through July here.
Great.
And just one last thing to note is that the team that has developed this model are running it every 2 weeks. And they'll provide the State Operations Center Advanced Planning Unit with updated maps kind of on it every 2 weeks as we get a little more certainty and get further into the melt season. And then those satellite images I showed at the beginning of my presentation, those images will be kind of used to track and see how the lake actually is evolving as we move through the spring.
We know that this is a move-in event, and so we appreciate the continuous monitoring of what's happening with the Tulare Basin as conditions change. I know CDE will also be informed, and we'll be contacting and continue to be in communication with our county offices of ed, so that you all have the best information as well for planning purposes. So thank you, Dr. Anderson. I appreciate all the work that you've done over the last several months here. We know you've been on the hot seat quite a bit, so appreciate all your support. Next up, we want to turn it over to Tom Graham from Cal OES, from the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. He's going to talk a little bit about the state level support for local education agencies. Tom, thank you for being here as the Cal OES Inland Administrator. Appreciate your time and
Thank you. Comms check. You hear me loud and clear?
we can hear you.
Good afternoon. Sorry I don't have slides for you right away. And I'll just leave the camera off while I'm speaking, but I just wanted to take the time first off. Thank you for the opportunity. Obviously, we consider all disaster response, local responsibility or a local impact. And then of course, we, the state and federal partners are here to assist and support. So again, I'm Tom Graham, Cal OES's Inland Region Administrator. Been doing this for about 5 years. I've had the pleasure and opportunity to work with schools in the past as well, going back to the Butte campfire disaster response, supporting the Butte County Office of Education. But I just want to briefly give you sort of a summary overview of what we do and how we can better support or coordinate along lines of disaster support, lines of efforts of disaster support. So Cal OES serves as the state's leadership hub during all major emergencies and disasters. This includes responding to directly and coordinating state and federal resources, as I mentioned, and mutual aid assets across all regions to support all diverse communities across the state. And then we support the local jurisdictions and communities through planning, preparedness, activities, training, and facilitating the immediate response to an emergency in the long-term recovery phase. We utilize a system called SEMS, which stands for the State Emergency Management System. And that goes from the field level or the local level, local jurisdictions, to operational level, which is all encompassing the county. We consider the schools as part of that operational level. And then the region, which is where I kind of serve, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And of course, the state. And then obviously, California Department of Education facilitating this meeting. Thanks again. At the state level, we work in partnership. Within the inland region, I cover like 3 mutual aid regions, which is about 31 counties, 123 cities, and a population of 7.2 million. And then I employ about 14 staff. They're geographically dispersed. These emergency service coordinators and senior emergency service coordinators, they work directly as liaisons between the county, local emergency services, emergency management, also in partnership with law and fire entities. And then we work back to the state and other state agencies for the support effort. Again, 31 counties, and then obviously we're supporting, or this meeting's focused on the Tulare Basin, and we've been working hand in hand, shoulder to shoulder with Kern, Kings, Tulare, Fresno for some time now as we prepare for future flooding because of the snow melt, so on and so forth. Obviously, a lot of flood fighting response has been going on. Again, coordinated efforts with the Department of Water Resources that just briefed as well. They're producing modeling products that we're sharing. We have other task force at the state level. The State Operations Center as an advanced planning unit and a EVAC planning task force, and all just kind of working together in concert with local government to ensure the response is supported well. Just briefly, during this last disaster response for the winter storms and the flooding, we had about 25 counties included in the disaster. We call it DR 4699. The State Operations Center has been activated for some time and in a unified coordination group with FEMA. In the recovery phase, we also stand up local assistance centers that support the community, and those have been ongoing. I'm going to skip, I have some notes that I'm reading to, and I'm going to skip over a few things, but just to highlight a few things that are important for the schools is between Cal OES, as we coordinate with the operational areas, which essentially is the County Office of Emergency Service, they could request assistance on behalf of the entire operational area, which may include yourselves, the schools, school districts, the Office of Education. And then, so it's very important that the schools, school districts, Office of Eds are in hand working with the county as well when it comes to disaster response. If the county doesn't know the situation, then we probably don't know at the state. So can't emphasize enough the importance of close coordination and communication with your local Office of Emergency Services. Hopefully you already have those partnerships and that you're working with. If not, we can certainly make those connections. So in the time of a disaster, if there is an unmet need or a request that a county or you say the schools aren't able to support directly, then those requests would come through that operational area, the County Office of Emergency Services, and could come to us at state or through region first and then to state. We do expect you to try to explain why you're not able to purchase, contract, or otherwise acquire yourself. And then again, we'll attempt to fill those requests at the state level. And then just some highlights, like as we transition from a response to recovery, you want to always anticipate any kind of significant damage. You need to try to capture those costs. Individual damage estimates are always very important. They'll be used as part of a preliminary damage estimate. And again, if the school experiences any sort of damage, then they need to be communicating with the operational area, County Office of Emergency Services, with that information so that initial damage estimate could be included. Also, be sure to stay current on preventive maintenance, document and retain maintenance record, have pictures in advance of your facilities, adhere to policies, and again, track all costs. So I know I went through that fairly quick because I think my time was limited. So if there's any questions, feel free to ask me or put in the chat and we'll attempt to answer. I'll actually try to get some of this captured and provide it back to you. But I know that in past, in partnership again with CDE and Joe and Jake, a lot of this information is presented to you in the past, and I just kind of want to summarize again how we best support one another. And
Thank you.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Appreciate the close coordination and support that you provide to not only our LEAs, but throughout the state. I think that one of the issues that has come up, and one of the things that I just found out recently, is that in order for flood insurance policies to take effect, sometimes you do need to do them in advance of the situation of the events of the flood. So can you just talk a little bit about how what kind of financial support comes in and sort of what's expected of LEAs. I know that sometimes LEAs that do have insurance, you kind of have to go through the insurance first, and then the state kind of steps in to support any of those unmet financial needs.
Again, I understand the question, and not a recovery expert here, but certainly it's very important that, like you said, that if a school incurs costs, that they're tracking those costs, and certainly the expectation would be to utilize any sort of insurance and available. In some cases, there may be grant funding. I'm not always sure about that, but we can always check into it. But there's certain thresholds that have to be made before it can be supported. And again, that's why I was mentioning early on that the initial damage estimates should be provided to the county Office of Emergency Services so they can track, and they would submit a proclamation that encompasses the whole county or the whole operational area. Those costs get rolled up, submitted to the state, and then at the Cal-OES recovery division, they'll analyze that information to determine whether it meets certain thresholds, whether it's for state funding or federal funding. Then it goes to another level to the governor. Again, that's where you may be considering a state proclamation or a major disaster declaration. But to your point, to your question, definitely ensure that have insurance in advance, utilizing that. But we can always check with our recovery team if there's any more specific questions related to that.
I appreciate that, Tom. I understand. I thought, as a former school board member, I thought all school districts were required to have insurance, but I understand that that's actually not the case. And so, you may want to check to make sure that you have adequate coverage for these types of disasters as well. Certainly the state will help and provide resources that the state can, but certainly it is helpful to have that preventative insurance in case of those disasters. So, Tom, thank you so much for joining us today. I know we'll continue to be in touch, and wanted to turn it over next to one of our nonprofit partners. Very happy to have Bill Hart here from the California Red Cross. He's going to talk to us a little bit about resources that local LEAs might be able to tap into for preparation and in response for a disaster. So, Bill, thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about preparedness. And as was mentioned, I am Bill Hart. I'm a disaster services manager for the American Red Cross, the California Gold Country region. We encompass the 26 northern counties of California, with other regions taking responsibility for the other parts of the state. And everyone knows that the Red Cross helps people during emergencies. We open shelters, we come out and feed, we hand out shovels and other cleanup kits. But a lot of people don't know that a big part of our mission is to help folks help themselves. We'll be there to meet the immediate needs, a safe place to stay, whether it's a single home fire, extreme flooding like we've been having this year, wildfires, whatever the situation is. But each year, American Red Cross chapters around the country, we train disaster volunteers in how to prevent, prepare for, and respond for disasters. And preparedness starts with each one of us taking steps to stay safe before, during, and after emergencies or disasters. These kind of situations, they often strike quickly and without warning. And they're frightening for adults, but they can even be more traumatic for children. And it's our responsibility to be prepared. To be prepared before a disaster strikes, to give the children that are under our care guidance that might help them reduce those fears. By setting aside some time and resources to be prepared at home and at work, you can help keep yourself and those under your care safer. And it helps keep the emergency responders safer also. The Red Cross has many resources to help youth and their grown-ups be better prepared at home. And this year, as I mentioned just a moment ago, this year flooding's been making the headlines. And flooding can result from rain, from snow melt, as we're experiencing currently, coastal storms, storm surges, overflows of rivers, dam failures, any number of things. And they can be very, very dangerous. People die primarily by drowning when they don't evacuate before the floodwaters come, or even worse, they enter the floodwaters. Floods can damage buildings, roads, they can cause power outages, create landslides. And additionally, floodwaters carry a lot of waste and it pollutes the drinking water. Floods can happen slowly or they can happen very quickly. Flash floods can be sudden and violent, but we can take action to prepare. Now, you can begin to prepare now to protect yourself and your loved ones by becoming what we call Red Cross Ready. Now, becoming Red Cross Ready for an emergency, it means following our simple steps in advance to ensure that you can weather a crisis in safety and relative comfort. Being Red Cross Ready means that you know what to do and how to stay safe in the event of an emergency. And it's important to prepare for possible emergencies because they can strike suddenly and violently at any time and in any place. Now, if your facility or staff are Red Cross Ready at home, any emergencies that they face may be less disruptive effect at work. Additionally, the knowledge and the skills that they develop at home can be brought into the classroom to help students and families become better prepared too. Being prepared for a disaster is not going to prevent that disaster, but it can give you the confidence to meet the challenge. Now, getting prepared might sound difficult or time consuming, but with a little help from the Red Cross, it's actually very doable. It's as easy as 1, 2, 3. One, you get a kit together. Learn the essential supplies to put in your family's survival kit. Include medication, things for the dog, emergency papers. Number 2, make a plan. You plan effectively for you and those that are under your care in the case of emergency. Don't forget the needs of those who might need some extra help. Include them in your emergency plan. And then 3, stay informed. Understand what disasters are likely to occur in your area and what you must know to keep safe. Okay, a few other ways to be prepared. Download the Red Cross app. Our free app, it provides tools and preparedness information that you can use every day. And I'll be talking a little bit later about that app. Learn hands-on only CPR. We have a short little 2-minute video to learn how to give hands-only CPR. It buys some precious time for persons experiencing cardiac arrest. We would encourage you to go on past that and take our full CPR, first aid, AED classes, but start off with the hands-only CPR. Make a first aid kit, and you'll see our recommendations for what to put into that kit. And then finally, print out the Preparedness Essentials checklist. And I think copies of the items that I'm talking about will wind up in the chat. I'm not sure, but I think they'll wind up in the chat or you'll get them later. Now, a couple of child-oriented programs that we have. The Pillowcase Project is a preparedness education program that we have for grades 3 to 5 that teaches students about personal and family preparedness and safety skills, local hazards, and some basic coping skills. Red Cross volunteers will lead students through a learn, practice, share framework to engage them in disaster preparedness and survival skills. And then upon completion, students receive a really cool, sturdy pillowcase that they can decorate and whatnot on the outside, in which they can take home to build their own personal supplies kit. We have it available in a 40 or a 60-minute format, and it's just perfect for schools, after school programs, Boy and Girl Scout troop meetings, and more. And then we customize the presentations to focus on a hazard that's important and relevant to the students in their local community. Along with that, we have Prepare with Pedro, and this is a 30 to 45-minute preparedness education program for the little ones, for grades kindergarten through second grade, that teaches kids how to be prepared and how to take action, whether with a home fire or some other local hazard. Prepare with Pedro, it complements the Pillowcase project in scope and mission. And it does this by reading a story featuring a penguin named Pedro. You know, students learn a coping skill and they receive a little storybook to share what they have when they learn at home. We find parents listen a lot more when their kids bring the information home to them than when they come out to us. This is perfect for schools and after school programs. And by the way, speaking of your schools, consider having your schools as a Red Cross shelter. We're always looking for appropriate, safe places, secure places for us people to go in case of a disaster. Now, things that you can do to help, particularly the kids. You know, after experiencing an emergency, certain behaviors are common in children, you know, such as anxiety, sleep issues, fear the emergency will happen again, a regression from certain developmental milestones, and clinginess or separation anxiety with loved ones. Children may also experience express their feelings through play, sometimes by replaying emergencies that they've experienced. Know that these behaviors and feelings are common after a stressful event, and that your reassurance, love, and extra affection can help them soothe their anxiety. You know, explore and identify the feelings that the children may be feeling and openly discuss what happened, you know, in an age-appropriate way. You know, as I mentioned, provide some extra affection and comfort. Provide extra patience and understanding, you know, as the child starts doing the common tasks. You know, forgetfulness and difficulty focus are very common, particularly in our children. You know, try to keep at least one routine in their days the same as it was before the emergency. That gives them something to anchor to. And assure the child that you'll do everything you can do to help protect them and to keep them safe. But don't make unrealistic promises. You know, stay positive with words and actions. And of course, monitor the media and the children's exposure to the news or other information regarding the emergency. Most importantly, remember to take care of yourself so that you can be there for the children. Now, on an organizational level, we have what is called the Red Cross Ready Rating Program. A Ready Rating is a program that helps businesses, schools, and organizations become more prepared for disasters and other emergencies. Now, is your school or organization, is it prepared for an emergency? Well, this free self-paced membership program begins with a self-assessment of your level of preparedness to reveal areas for improvement and help you track your school's progress and increasing your preparedness through a customized OSHA-compliant emergency action plan. And it's all in one place. Ready members have access to one-of-a-kind tools, resources, information for evaluating and proving their ability to withstand disaster, maintain operations, and protect lives and property. So whether you're taking your first step or you have a fully functioning emergency management program, the Ready Rating Program can help you achieve a higher level of preparedness. And as I mentioned, members join this free. It's a free self-paced program, and they complete a 1, 2, 3-point self-assessment of your level of preparedness to reveal areas for improvement. You'll learn tips and best practices so you don't feel like you're alone out there. And most importantly, members make a commitment to improve their readiness score each year. Because preparedness is a continuous process. And it's not just a one-time effort that winds up sitting on the shelf. And finally, just a bit more about the Red Cross Emergency app. Red Cross has rebuilt this app so that it's an all-inclusive emergency app to help improve how its timely, accurate information is provided to protect you and those that are in your care. The app's available in English and Spanish, and we have a new easy-to-find language toggle. Makes it very convenient compared to the old one. This app lets you customize 40 different weather alerts so that you can be ready when anything happens particular to your area. You can monitor up to 5 different locations, plus your own current location. And then also you can override your phone's do not disturb feature so that you get alerts that you said is critical in a timely manner. Now you can receive full weather alerts in Spanish as well as English, as I mentioned, and you can easily find out where Red Cross shelters are open with our interactive map. And then you can track conditions with, I think it's 6 different weather overlays. And the app guides you step by step through actionable training modules to prepare risks most common where you live and to provide a dynamic to-do list so that you know exactly what actions to take. Recent updates to the app make it possible for people with disabilities who rely on screen readers to also use the app. To make sure that you're ready for the unexpected, go ahead and download that free app. You can use the QR code that's on the screen there if you like. It's compatible with the Apple Watch and Android devices. If you don't download it from the QR code, you just search for American Red Cross in the app stores, or you can go to redcross.org/apps. So if there's any questions about what you heard today or anything about the Red Cross in general, if so, go ahead and put them in the chat. And I've included several of our handouts that I hope wind up in the chat, as well as my contact information.
Bill, thank you so much for that wealth of information and those resources that school districts and organizations can avail themselves to. As you mentioned, preparedness is a continuous process. And so while we prepare for this disaster, know that disaster can happen at any time. Just last week, we had a couple of earthquakes up in Northern California. Thankfully, there wasn't a lot of impact to our schools or life or property over there. But certainly, it's always good to be prepared. So thank you for that information, and the links to that app and the text message link is also available in the chat. Thank you, Bill. I'm sure folks will be reaching out to you with questions in the future. We appreciate you being a partner here today. Next up, wanted to turn it over to our own Jake Wolf and Joe Anderson. They're going to talk a little bit about what we do here at CDE to help support schools during, before, and after an event. So, gentlemen.
Thank you, Abel. I really appreciate it. And you're right. What a wealth of knowledge, and just goes to show the amount of effort that goes into this. And I'll go ahead and take it away, Joe.
All right. So I just wanted to share a little bit about something, if in case the worst does happen, I want schools to be prepared. And what that is, that's the School Emergency Reporting System. I know some of you may have heard of that, but this is something that is really kind of taking off in schools right now. And, it's basically, if the flooding occurs, there needs to be a way for you to communicate with us, CDE, and also your other local partners about kind of what your needs are and what the situation is. So CDE developed this tool called the School Emergency Reporting System, also known as SERS. And this allows school districts to report their damage, their school needs, and even their closures to the state directly, to me and Jake specifically. So between the two of us and the rest of the team that supports us here at CDE, we can utilize this system to communicate with our partners and communicate those needs to different places that need to know. So basically, it's a way for us to connect the needs with the resources. For example, in the recent winter storms, this tool was heavily utilized by schools, which allowed them to request assistance for multiple issues. SIRS also helped CDE guide schools towards grant resources afterwards to help recover from flooding and storm. So we're kind of in the process of that right now. So we designed the system to be very easy to use and to be very user-friendly, and schools have verified that's exactly how it feels to them. It is very easy to use. It can even be used on your phone. And I encourage all school districts and county offices of education to utilize SIRS when your schools are impacted in disasters. So we can help you with your response and recovery efforts, and we can help you get back to normal. The link to SIRS will be put in the chat. In fact, I believe it's up here on the slides right now. Thank you for doing that, Crystal. For access codes, feel free to reach out either to your county office of education. I've given access codes for every district to the COEs. Also, you can just reach out to me, or you can go on to SIRS, and there's a way you can get your access code there. With that, I'm going to turn it back over to Jake real quick to do some other comments, and then we'll go back to Abel.
Wonderful. I appreciate that, Joe. And as you can see on the slide that we have up there, to accompany the school's emergency reporting system and a lot of the advances that we've made so far with the emergency services team, and those who don't know about the emergency service team, you probably have heard of us so far, but we are the emergency management representatives for the California Department of Education, supporting K through 12 education in the state of California. And so what we've done over the past few months, knowing that there has been impacts from flooding, and there is potential for more impacts from flooding, we decided to do some internal coordination to develop a resource list. This resource list, we've titled it the Emergency Services Team Educational Resource List, has everything from waivers for food to specific resources for preschool programs. It's got resources for mental health supports, American Indian education programs. There's all kinds of things that are listed in this document that's supportive to you and to your local education agencies. It's important during a disaster that you can look back at the times that you know all the information you gained prior to the disaster. And so this is your opportunity to take a look at a resource list like this and create that wealth of information that you have available to you when the disaster happens. You already have a relationship with the material. You already have a relationship with the programs, so you know what to do when the bad stuff happens. And hopefully, we're hoping that nothing happens. But as we know, in the state that we live in, that certainly hasn't been the case. That the potential for something bad to happen is pretty high these days. And so the more you can do to prepare, the better off you're going to be when something bad happens. And so this educational resource list is our first attempt at making sure that we give those resources in a fashion that's easy to access and is ready for you to access on our website. Additionally, if you go onto our website, which is our emergency services team page, we do have resources there specifically regarding flooding from the Readiness and Emergency Management in Schools Technical Assistance Center. That's REMS-TA, which is from the Federal Department of Education. They have provided some flood related resources. And then we have some other additional resources on there that we've gathered from the state and from other state agencies and from other federal partners. We encourage you, before the disaster happens, take the time, invest, sit down with some of those materials, maybe even sit down with some of your staff, maybe with your school safety committee, maybe with some local volunteers that you have that are invested in school safety, and have conversations about, if something happens, what are we going to do? Want to reiterate something that was shared earlier by Tom Graham, our regional administrator for Inland Region for the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. And that's ensuring that you're coordinated with your local government before a disaster happens. So now, at this moment in time, you should be creating those relationships with your public safety personnel that are surrounding you within your jurisdiction. So those folks, having a relationship with them will be really key when the bad things happen. So ensure that you're creating those relationships now. Hey, take a few minutes, go to our website, check out and see what we have on there. You, by the end of this presentation, you will have contact information for me and Joe. I encourage you, if you have questions, if you need assistance, if you need support, if you just need someone to talk to let you know what's happening, please, we encourage you to reach out to your county offices of education, and we encourage you to reach out to your local emergency management and reach out to us here at the Department of Education. This slide that you see here references the school's emergency reporting system. Like Joe said, we use this program for increased situational awareness. So when you report in that system, it gives us the information that we need to know how to help you. When your school is closed, and it's, let's say that you're having a disruption in your learning environment, utilizing the system at the local education agency level is going to help us determine what those impacts are. Why would we want to know that? Well, when we have that information, it really makes it easy for us to package up that information and help our leaders, our elected leaders, our government officials, our executive leadership to make policy level decisions to do the right thing and help you out in the way that they can, because if they don't know what's going on, then they don't know how to help you. And so this is a way to help bridge that gap. And then of course, determining unmet needs, determining what things are needed at the local level, telling us through that system, which you have the opportunity to do in there so that we know how to help you. We know what kind of resources are needed, what kind of support you need, so we can help facilitate the flow of information and resources up and down the levels of the standardized emergency management system that Tom referred to earlier in the presentation. And of course, it also acts as a record of school impacts and disasters. And that data is really helpful for us when we start to determine what type of preparedness activities, what type of support, whole cloth within the state and K through 12 education is going to be helpful and supportive. And with that, we'll go ahead and pass it back to our executive leadership, Abel Guillen. Abel, take it away. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Jake and Joe, for all that you do. We have a very small team made of exactly 2 people on our EST team that have to cover 58 counties, and it's quite a lot of work. And so want to just thank you, recognize you for all the heavy lifting that you've done to get us here to this point to be able to put on this webinar, and really all our team at CDE. Wanted to emphasize real quick that the reason why this information is important, reporting to SIRS, oftentimes I do get questions or comments about when am I going to get my J13 waiver approved, or how long is that process taking? This year we have had a lot of different floods, fires, earthquakes that we've had to deal with. So we do have quite a fit. We expect over 800 or so applications for J13 waivers. And I know we didn't cover that today, but there are resources on our webpage around that. But when a school district actually uses the SIRS system to report that information through that system, it does act as a record of school impacts, and it helps us here at CDE advocate for you to the state legislature and to other bodies. So when you do use that system, SIRS, it captures the data that we need to advocate to Cal OES, to FEMA, even up to the President of the United States, in some cases, to make sure that disasters can get declared timely, so that we can make sure that resources are funneling to your local school districts. We hope that this information has been helpful, that this webinar has been useful for you all here today. We know it's a short hour, but we hope that you will take steps to prepare locally. Know that you are not alone. Know that you have resources at the state that will continue to advocate for resources for schools to make sure our kids are safe and to make sure that we continue education. So on the next slide, if you could just turn to the next slide, You have our resources and contact information there. You have the general mailbox also for our emergency services team. If you have follow-up questions or other things that may come up or something that we didn't cover today, please do let us know. As Joe and Jake had mentioned, we did compile our emergency resources list that we sent out to LEAs. I know some of you did not get that, so please, if you did not get that, put it into the Q&A and we will make sure to get that information out to you. This is our first attempt of trying to compile those resources in a coherent fashion for our districts. And so that will be continuously updated. If there's something on there that you would like to see or something that you need, please do let us know. It's only useful to us if it's useful to you. So with that, on behalf of Superintendent Tony Thurman and our entire team here at CDE that helped with this webinar today, wanted to thank you so much and appreciate your time. We look forward to continuing the conversation at a future date. So thank you again.